my screen. Yes. Okay. I know I'm official when Karen Murphy tells me no, and then she tells me yes. Okay. If you're just dialing in, welcome. I'm Shelley Johnson. I am in Denver, Colorado, and I am the CEO of Best Youth Talent Advisors. Today, we are going behind the recruitment curtain. It's not a wizard. There's no Wizard of Oz back there. You're going to be hearing from real recruiters who are hiring today. One of my guests is the chairman of the board for the Arapahoe Douglas County AdWorks. So we're going to hear from really what's going on with apprenticeships and different areas. So did you notice how we chose today's title? How do you navigate today's market with confidence? Because I saw a friend of mine, Barbara Brooks from Second Act Women, do a video this week that she's like, if I have to talk to another person over 50 who is like, ageism is real and I'm not hearing back because, or I'm talking to new grads who are like, AI is taking over my role. How do I figure this out? We're going to talk about all these things today. And our hope in the next hour and a half, hour and 15 minutes, is to share what really goes on. Okay, let's it's so nice to have all of you. If I have not met you, my name is Shelley. I know it's spelled weird. Don't call me Michelle, though only my mom has permission to do that. Um, I am the CEO of Best You Talent Advisors. I've had my own business for 6 years. Prior, I was the head of talent acquisition for Comcast, a senior leader at Lockheed Martin. And in 2016, I came to Denver, but before that, I was in Arizona, the head of talent for Northwest Labs. And I still have people on this very call that I either worked with or know. So happy to have all of you here. My job is two things. Well, three. I help coach people to have more joy and professional success. It's really that simple. I've been coaching people for over 20 years. I'm currently getting my certification in professional level coaching and have some of my clients on the line as well. Secondly, I'm an executive recruiter. I am currently working on a business development leader for a space systems business. And I am a recruiter that seeks you out on LinkedIn. I figure out what companies are my competitors, and you're going to hear more about that today. Adrienne is the soul behind me. She's my right hand. She supports me with marketing and social media. She has 10 years of recruitment experience. So as a team, we are here to bring the best speakers to you. She also does change management and has been helping me a whole lot behind the scenes. Okay, I added some slides today because I want to talk to you about what industries are actually hiring. And you might have seen this slide if you were part of our Behind the Recruitment Curtain a month ago. We have Behind the Recruitment Curtain about every 6 weeks. And sometimes you're out there wondering, where should I be spending my time? How many of you are wondering that? Questioning, how do I spend my time? What industries are hiring? How do I know? Right? So, food and beverage, hospitality. We have Anna Wilson that is from this exact market. They are hiring right now. Aerospace and space is hiring. Data centers. If you're in Arizona or any of the hotbeds for data centers are hiring. AEC or architecture, engineering, construction. We had Alex Lang, a good friend of mine from Martin and Martin during our last session. Take a picture of this. You might notice that Colorado Startup Week is next week. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Trades. Now, I know my good friend Peter Hancock is able to talk through some of what's going on in apprenticeships and trades. The Denver airport is the busiest hub in the US for domestic flights. So if you're in Denver, what's the airport doing? Something you might not have ever thought of. One of my clients currently, sometimes you have to pick up part-time jobs, and he drives a snowmobile at night to clear the airport, and he makes bank, right? So healthcare, cannabis growing, healing centers. And what I mean by this is this might not be everywhere in the US, but certainly in Colorado and in different states. What they're doing with plant-based medicines and healing, they are hiring laboratories, biotech, and believe it or not, government. Believe it or not. So these are the areas that I know that are hiring right now. So I want to have your permission to go a little bit into coaching with this next slide, because I can't even tell you how many people are so tired of being ghosted, not hearing back. So I kind of stole this slide from a presentation that I did. How many of you have heard of the book, The Let Them Theory? Anyone? I know certain people on the call or hear me talk about this, but I wanted to just talk about this book and how this book can help you to release control in your journey. And basically, I recommend the book. And if you are tired of like getting stuck in a long process or having biases, how do you take your power back? We're going to be doing a lot more on this topic through a coaching perspective. So I recommend the Let Them Theory. I want to get more into this with you, but it's really taking your control back. They want to ghost me? Let them. They want to not listen to what I'm saying? Let them. The power here is all about how do you follow up? How do you build pipelines? And so I just decided this morning to throw this in. It might be hitting with some of you, it might not, but it's really about taking your power back. And I'm hoping that Anna, Madison, and Peter, on some of the slides that we talk about, can really bring these type of topics in so that you start taking your power back. Okay. I do group coaching. Just wanted to mention that I'm starting some new group coaching in October. I currently have 12 people going through group coaching. The impact has been awesome. More interviews, feeling better, sleeping better, and just more accountability. So if any of my clients currently in group coaching are out there and they want to give a thumbs up for this, for something that they're learning, I would highly appreciate it. Now, if you are a new grad, we're going to talk about what's going on in the market if you're a new grad or emerging leader. I had so many parents calling me like, Shelly, my son just graduated from North Carolina State or from Arizona State or from CSU. Now what? I decided to do something about it. I'm offering a group coaching for emerging leaders. The QR code is there. So if you know someone who is just graduated or an emerging leader that actually has to know how to manage this market, I'd love to chat with them. Okay. Here's the important pieces here. Next week is Denver Startup Week, now Colorado Startup Week. I will be speaking on a panel on Tuesday, the 16th at Terra. It's called The Age Advantage. How do you rewrite startup culture through connection? Sumaya is leading the panel. She is the past head of DEI for Charles Schwab. Barbara Brooks, the head of Second Act Women, and a good friend of mine, Kelly Congdon, who is the managing director at Fortis Bank. We will all be on a panel, so we'd love to have you join us. But if you haven't looked at the Colorado Startup Week agenda, there is so much out there for you as the job seeker, for you as professional development, especially for AI, agentic AI, all different types of AI. So I highly encourage you to go out, register, and see what Monday through Friday brings for you. There are morning, noon, and night sessions, and lots of people in our community are going to be hitting the streets next week with learning what the startup environment looks like. Okay, The next thing we're going to have is behind the recruitment curtain. We've got another awesome group coming up for you on October 16th. And we might even have a few more speakers in between there. So if you are new, please be on the lookout for our newsletters, our event information, and we hope to see you at some of our events. Now, who's ready to get started in meeting some of these awesome panelists? We are going to start with Madison Vang. Madison is currently a talent acquisition partner with Medely with 9 years of recruitment experience across different arenas. I actually put out a notice on a group called Talent Collective, which is all of the heads and leaders in talent acquisition across the country. Hubs here in Silicon Valley and in different areas. And Madison was nice enough to volunteer to join us today. Madison, do you want to say hi, everyone, and just tell us something fun and personal about yourself?
Yes, for sure. Thank you so much for having me here today and really excited to see such a big group here. So I'm Madison. I've been in the recruitment space for a little over 9 years, like Shelly had mentioned. The last 4 years have been focused in startup. So been in Austin, lots of startups here. So really gave me a good opportunity to pivot into that from RPO. So a little bit different, but it's been super exciting. I really like to build things. So when it comes to whether it's like creating like an onboarding program, even like fitness routines, things like that. So I love just being able to build things from scratch and have learned a lot on the way. I would say something about me when I'm not working, I usually like to read like nonfiction, specifically on like psychology, human behavior type of that. And then I also recently got into photography late last year as well too. So that's something that I do as a creative outlet.
That's awesome. Thanks, Madison. Okay. Anna, we're super excited to have Anna Wilson here with us. She was actually at a happy hour for Talent Collective. I met her, I loved her energy. And with 10 years of recruitment experience, mostly in hospitality, I thought really bringing her in to help us understand what happens behind the recruitment curtain with both corporate and boutique agencies would really give you an idea of how that works. Anna, tell us more about you.
Yeah, so like Shelly said, I have 10 years of recruitment experience, mostly on the in-house side and most recently over on the agency side. So I've really been able to look at recruitment kind of all, from all facets. Genuinely, I am just fascinated by the nature of work and helping match people with amazing opportunities that help them shine and find meaning and purpose. So I love what I do. But I actually got started on the operations hospitality side. So I do say, especially for my new grads out there and anybody who's, new to the job market, definitely don't knock those quote unquote entry level positions because they can really help you build up some incredible skills and there's amazing career paths even within it. So like Shelly said, I do have a specific niche carved out within hospitality recruitment. And again, I just love what I do and again, love helping people through that process. And then just some fun facts about me. I am a runner. I love to run. I'm actually competing in a half marathon this weekend. So everyone send me those speedy vibes this weekend. And I'm fortunate to live here in Colorado. So if anybody has any wonderful hiking spots for the fall leaves that are coming up very soon, I am all ears. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'm super happy to be here.
Awesome. Thanks, Anna. I've got some ideas for you. Golden, and then so we can talk all about that. All right. Next, I'm super excited to have a good friend, Peter Hancock. Peter has been doing recruitment for 18 years, account management. He's actually the CEO and president of Professional Employment Group. I got to meet Peter, I don't even know, 3 or 4 years ago. He is a gem of a human. He is as nice as they come, and he walks the talk with bringing in different ideas. So, Peter, really excited to have you here. Thank you so much. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us some fun facts about you?
Thank you, Shelley, and it's great to be part of this and great to be the one guy representing on this panel. So
That guy.
outnumbered today. But I appreciate the honor to be part of this. And this year I'm celebrating, it's crazy, 22 years I've been doing this for. And I love recruiting. I stumbled upon, and I say a random fact, in my first job in recruiting, I went to interview and I did not wear a suit and was told no. I went and bought a suit that night and took 7 interviews, but I got the job. So I came in with a chip on my shoulder. I also have 4 kids. I sort of skipped my 30s for kids. I had kids in my 20s and 40s. So I have everywhere from a high schooler, a middle schooler, a preschooler, and a 3-month old. So whether my life is crazy running around the country managing my team here or managing my family, I love it. I am a very big outdoorsy person. I grew up in Wyoming and love to be part of the community. I serve on a lot of workforce boards and share a lot of things nationally to help sort of advise, and excited to bring sort of a diverse lens that I can share with you guys, and look forward to any questions. But thank you, Shelley, for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Peter, for being here. Really excited about this panel today. So let's jump in. Our first topic is because there's such a high unemployment rate currently for new grads or emerging leaders. So if you are parents of these folks, if you are an aunt, uncle, it doesn't matter. We've got some really important things to talk about here. Madison, I'm going to start with you. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts on how new grads or emerging leaders can really make an impact in today's market.
Yeah, for sure. So I would say when it comes to like new grads, entry level, um, the, the biggest thing is that because they bring the latest like knowledge, like whether it's like technology or new research, things like that. So that really sets them apart as well too, compared to somebody who's been in the industry a long time. So it's a different value and skill set that they bring onto the table. So experience is definitely important, but for new grads and entry level candidates, being able to, I would say, use that as a selling point is going to be really crucial. And then also just being able to translate those skills because a lot of times I would say employers understand and recruiters know that somebody who is coming into the field, they have like limited experience. So they're not going to expect the level of skill that somebody who's been in the industry for like 10 years. So I think their biggest pieces is just being able to show that they have like transferable skills and having the willingness and the drive to really learn. Because even for when I think of like internships, because I've also built internship programs from scratch as well too during my time from like 2016 until now have worked with like interns and entry level grads. And that's always been a big thing. Even when I work with hiring managers and they say, hey, we want somebody with, a junior or a senior, but we've definitely brought on like a sophomore candidate because they had that drive. They have like a level of maturity that we're like, okay, we can bring this person and easily train them. So I think that's a big piece of it too, having the drive. The soft skills piece, I always say, is something that is harder to train because the technical piece you can always train, but the soft skills, the personality, the drive, like you can't train somebody to come to work. You can't train them to get along well with others. So that's definitely one way to look at it as well too. If for somebody who does have limited experience, it doesn't mean that they won't be considered. There's definitely a lot of value that they can bring onto the table.
Awesome. I just want to tell you a story about a new grad that I recently helped. His name's Andrew. Andrew graduated from North Carolina State. He worked for the Kansas City Royals afterward, and he was laid off. Early 20s. I met him through his grandfather. He just texted me over the weekend and said, Shelley, I landed. He's going to be an account specialist for New Balance. His level of professionalism, his ability to communicate, his resilience, his showing professional courtesy. It's all about relationships that equate to results. My other clients that are landing are following up. We hear a lot of times that the newer Gen Z are very much aligned with not having as broad of impact of more experienced. Not true at all. Looking at their maturity level, looking at for those new grads that are out there, what's vital is that you know yourself, you know your story, you understand the market, and you come across and you're very open, resilient, and you listen to other intergenerations. Anna, I'd love to get your insight on this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the things that I think of specifically when it comes to entry level or anybody who may be changing industries, right? So someone who has limited experience in the professional capacity that they are trying to pivot towards. I think one of the things that's important to remember is that your resume is your invitation to the party, right? So we could have an entirely separate panel just on, resumes and application, best practices and things like that. But assuming you're at the interview stage and you are speaking with a recruiter, you're speaking with a hiring manager, I think what's important to note is that yes, you lack some of the specific experience, right? Because at the end of the day, a lot of times recruitment is risk management, right? Hey, I hope that you're excuse me if you can hear my dog with the squeaky toy in the back. But oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Um, but I think what's important to remember is that they want you to be the one, right? So again, maybe it's not something where it's like, oh yes, I can handle 10 accounts because I have experience handling 10, 15, 20 accounts, right? So instead you say, hey, this isn't the specific experience that I have, but here's the tangential experience that I do have to say, hey, look, this is a problem that I've experienced, whether it was in my internship, whether it was in a group project I had during school, whether this was in my previous career path. This is a problem I experienced, and here's how I handled it. Here's X, Y, and Z that I did to combat that adversity. And then that way the hiring manager can really kind of see you in action, right? They can say, oh, yeah, I can see how it's maybe not the direct experience, but again, there's some really great substance there so that we can have that confidence that it's going to translate. So that's some advice that I would say, right? I think there's a really great way to use storytelling to be able to make your case in any situation.
Awesome. Peter, any final thoughts on this topic?
No, I think we've hit it well. I just think you really highlighting you're an individual product. You have to think of yourself and marketing yourself. And I know we hit
Love
on
that.
resumes a lot, but don't forget your LinkedIn profile. That I always say you need your products working 24/7 for you. And whether you're sleeping or out and playing at times, your resume and your LinkedIn profile is your best free marketing tool you can ever have. So having that as up to date and as fresh and lively as possible can really pay off.
Awesome. I even think that your LinkedIn profile is more important than your resume because as a recruiter, we are leveraging LinkedIn and tell us a story. Have contact information in there, have a relevant banner and a headline. We could talk all day about LinkedIn optimization, but I'm going to go to the next topic. And don't forget, we want to know what your topics are as well. So if you have questions that you want us to hit on and we see some burning bush, we're going to interrupt our agenda and we will answer your questions as well. Okay, resume gaps and growth. Anna, I'm going to start with you on this one.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. So like I was mentioning, kind of alluding to before, again, there's so much we could say as far as specific, resume strategy, but specifically when it comes to either resume gaps or making that transition to maybe a different industry or a different type of work, or making that jump from maybe manager to director or line level up to management, I think that there's some really great opportunities there. What I want everyone to remember is that every transition, every gap, every hey, I tried this out for 6 months and it really just didn't work out for me, that all can have a very valid explanation. And on as a recruiter, I'm hoping that you're the one, right? I come into that interview and I'm hoping you're the one. And I might notice that, right? Hey, look, this is 6 months. That's a little concerning. I am hoping that what you're going to tell me is compatible for what we're saying, right? I want this, I want this to work out. I'm not trying to catch you. I'm not trying to get you in a gotcha moment. I just want to know, I just want to be able to advocate for you. And so I think most of the time, those gaps can have really, really justified explanations. But what I think is important is that instead of saying, oh, yeah, I worked there for 3 months and my boss was a total jerk. And oh, yeah, I worked over here and it just wasn't a culture match and my boss was a total jerk. And oh, yeah, I went over here and it really wasn't a culture match for me. Then I'm seeing a different pattern, right? I'm seeing that, maybe it's not just, three misses in a row. Like maybe there is something very combative, or maybe there is something that's just very incompatible, right? There's a different pattern that I'm seeing if that is the actual explanation when it comes to either short tenures or for gaps, right? And so instead, what I would encourage folks to do is to say, you know, I tried something different. I was recommended to this opportunity and I tried this out, and this is what I learned from it. And ultimately, I recognized that what I actually really wanted to learn was this, and I was able to receive that knowledge from this opportunity, and this is what that opportunity really gave me. And hey, look, I took 3 months off because I had a family matter, but I was also able to get some volunteer work in while I was taking that gap. Or I was able to, take a PMP course that I'm really excited to be able to utilize in my next position, right? So I think that there's ways for you to own the narrative that your resume is kind of highlighting for you.
Fabulous. Peter, your thoughts on this?
I think just be very open. I agree with her. The worst thing you can do is when I'm interviewing someone and they're sort of wishy-washy of what they're doing, I'd rather them just own a gap or own I was traveling, own I was a stay-at-home mother, I was doing this. Because a good recruiter or a good manager will understand that you're going to live your life and they will be either accepting that or they're not. And I also think if you're going into a company that doesn't accept gaps, you may not fit in that company too. So your transparency will pay off and it will either be there. It's just like declaring if you have a background or drug screen or whatever life experience. I think transparency always helps because you're going to find the right company that appreciates you for you and appreciates travel or kids or life or family illness. And if they don't, it may not be the right fit for you in the long term. So I just think transparency is better.
Awesome. Madison, any final thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, so I would say number one is really normalizing resume gaps because life happens and career breaks are also pretty common too. So instead of treating them as red flags, frame them as part of like a full career story. So let's say you took some time off to travel instead of, you can always reframe it. I took some time off to recharge so that I could get ready to dive back into the workforce. So being able to frame it strategically and focus on the growth. And I think Anna brought up a really good point too, because I see it pretty often in conversations that I do have with candidates where and I think it's not to say that there aren't employers or cultures that are terrible. I'm sure there are many, but being able to reframe it and as like a reflective experience and say, like I really learned a lot from this experience versus focusing on the negative, even if that is true. So I think just again, how you frame on the growth is really important and also what you focus on. So like the skills, the experiences that you've gained during that time. And it's like, hey, during this time I was looking for a job and I haven't found anything, but I did take some time to take a course and expand my knowledge in this area. And to what Peter had said too, I think is really important. And Anna, that recruiters definitely are on your side. We want to help you. And a lot of times I tell people, I was like, trust me, I want this more than you. And so we definitely want to be an advocate. And when we ask these questions, it helps us also frame it to the hiring managers. I definitely have hiring managers who can be, if you will, like, oh, but like didn't work during this time. So what's that? Like, I'm not sure. And so that's where I can come in and say, hey, like this person left this position because of this, and this is what happened during this time. So just the consistency of the story is crucial, not perfection, because when you're dishonest, you have to create more lies to cover those lies, and it just makes it really hard to cover the tracks because then we'll have people who will tell different interviewers different things. Down the line, then second or third interview, they will have conflicting stories. And we talk about that when we have like the debrief at the end. It's like, hey, this person said that and this didn't make sense. So those things, and then just again really turning those gaps into the growth. So I would say don't wait for the interviewer to ask, have a polished, confident explanation ready. And when they do ask to, just make sure you are forthcoming about that. And leverage your network. People who know your work will vouch for you regardless of gaps. And like, don't undersell yourself, because again, the gaps can signal courage to step back, reevaluate, and like come back with like more focus, which is something that a lot of employers admire when people say, hey, like I definitely am being intentional about this next job search, which is why I haven't just taken any opportunity that came my way.
I see this kind of a hot topic in the chat. We've got 4 questions. I'm going to pick 2. Um, the first one is, what if they don't ask about your gaps? This is a really normal feeling, Rainey, for candidates to feel like recruiters are judging or hiring managers are judging without the ability to be honest and transparent. So, what if they don't answer the gaps? Anna, Peter, Madison, any thoughts on this question?
One thing I'll definitely say is that I feel like if there's any funky transitions or like small tenures or gaps around 2020, like I know what happened. We all know what happened around 2020. That was obviously a hard year for most of us. I think even the subsequent years after the biggest shifts of the pandemic and lockdown. So a lot of times I'm not asking because it's like I feel like everyone should just get a pass for like 2020 and 2021 that's my personal um feelings on that particular topic. But I think if I'm not shouting it out, I'm not seeing it as a negative, right? Because the idea is like if I'm asking about it, it's because I know my hiring manager is going to ask about it. So if it's something where it's like maybe a month or two, yes, you were looking for that perfect opportunity. I can see that. I think if it's like maybe 3 to 6 months, I might, that's kind of the threshold that I would probably ask about. But like we said too, right? It's, hey, I was working on myself. I was waiting for that right opportunity, just like we were saying. So I think if they're not asking, it's usually just like I need to talk. We need to talk about other things. So I'm not concerned about it. If I'm concerned about it, I'm going to call it out. So I don't think it's something where it's like, oh, I'm jumping ahead, I'm making my own mind up. Like I think that's how I would personally take it, but I'd love to hear other people's thoughts too.
I want to jump in here. There's a question about what about resume gaps for stay-at-home moms? You are a domestic engineer. You are running transferable skills like crazy. I actually hired a stay-at-home mom as an account executive. She was a stay-at-home mom for 7 years. She was the best multitasker possible. So, as the other panelists have said, we actually advocate for you. We need to know your story. So help us understand what you did as a stay-at-home mom. Like I said, domestic engineer. Jeff is asking, how long is a reasonable gap and when should it be addressed on a resume or cover letter? Well, I agree with Anna about we understand what happened in 2020, 2021. The market has been like this. It's been insane. What I would say here is I have people that work with me that have had decent gaps. Know your story. What have you been doing since? What are you excited about now? Are you getting your PMP? Are you getting certified in AI? Make sure anything dealing with AI is listed on your LinkedIn and your resume so that you are current and bleeding edge candidate. I know this topic we can move a lot different ways, but I do want to jump to the next one and really get everyone's insight. Career pivots, which also might be gap, or skills transfer or transition. Hold on a minute. Peter, I actually want to start with you on this one, with what you're seeing, being on some of the boards and with our workforce centers.
Yeah, it's definitely a topic of mind. And I mean, there's even executive orders from the national and state governments coming in on careers or skills first hiring right now and language or virtual learning models and everything. So I think it is something that's going to grow very quickly. And it goes with retraining skills and how your skills grow. So I think it's very important both to help highlight your skills on your resume, skills on your LinkedIn profile, but also as Shelley spoke about, even when you're a stay-at-home mom or whatever job you have, listing what skills you have, because companies are looking more for a soft skill or the skills to take someone than the perfect fit, because they know they can train someone with the hard skills, but if they have someone who has those skills transition or is willing to learn, it's much more adaptable. And I also think when they said skills transition, I would say the best employee is the best lifelong learner. And an employee that comes into interview and says, I always want to be a lifelong learner, I will be adaptable and growing, because that's what's needed in this market. If you're not willing to adapt and learn, you're SOL in this market. It doesn't matter what job you're in or anything. You have to be adaptable and willing to always upgrade your skills. And that's what I look for when I interview someone is, are you willing to be a lifelong learner and constantly absorb and change? Because that's what it takes to be good and competitive in this market today.
Awesome. Thank you, Peter. Madison, how about you?
Yeah. So I would say for the career pivots and skills transition, a lot of it we covered, and I think being able to just piggyback off of that, being able to just frame the narrative is really important. So instead of saying, "Hey, I did this," and if you want to move into something else, being able to frame like, "Okay, like I help cut down, ramp up time by X% by doing this." So that's different ways of how you can translate your skills and really any position that you're applying into, you always want to focus on the outcome and not specifically like job titles as well too, which I do know a lot of people do look at that, but I always say focus on the outcomes. That's going to be really crucial. And then it also helps to being able to reach out and leverage your network. Definitely have known people who were able to pivot into different careers by doing that, by reaching out and say, hey, I know I don't have experience in this, but I do bring X amount of years of experience in these areas where I was able to touch on a lot of these things, very similar. And I know that I can be successful in this position by the experience that I've had. So that's been a really big one too. So even people who moved from, say, let's say a nurse who became now a healthcare recruiter, they did the job. And so they're able to speak to exactly what healthcare, nurses do and be able to have like a network that they can leverage into so that it even helps with like the recruiting and filling positions and things like that. So definitely different ways to be able to pivot into that. So I think just knowing that sometimes if you are going to do a career pivot, you might have to take maybe a slight pay cut or a step back, depending. But it's not, I don't think it's a step back at all or a setback. Think of it as, a door to a longer career path and like something more meaningful. So seeing it as a door and versus like a detour or a step back is also going to be helpful too in the way that you operate and in the way that it's going to help you succeed. So it always just comes down to the mindset that you have around it.
Awesome. I just want to check in with everybody. How's everybody doing? We have 62 people. I want to hear your questions. I know that, yes, we have topics, but this is really centered on you. If you have questions that you want to ask, please put them in the chat. Adrian and I will be checking the chat completely or consistently throughout our time together. We only have another 30 minutes. So I want to pivot to the next one. And this talks about fractional contracting or gig work. This is a huge topic. And I personally have done at least 3 years of fractional talent acquisition. Many people out there are wondering about this arena and going full time, but yet I have many clients or people that I talk to that are kind of opening the door to fractional, opening the door to they're sticking their toe in the shallow end of where do I go? Contracting can be a very good way to get your foot in the door. And a lot of companies right now, if they are laying off, they might be hiring on a contract perspective or an temp perspective or doing gig work. How many of you are out there are doing gig work? You're doing fractional. I mean, I have clients that are doing Instacart, that are driving snowmobiles at the airport, that are bartenders. This is a really good way to learn new things, meet new people, leverage transferable skills, to keep yourself active and moving and money coming in during this crazy job market. Madison, when we were in our pre-meeting, I know that you had a lot of really nice comments around this, so I'm going to turn it over to you.
Sure. Yeah, most definitely. So I would say, choosing contract work, not because it's a last resort, but because it, again, opens doors. For me personally, it has given me access to like new industries and allowed me to also like ship fast wins too. So again, I think being able to frame that narrative in your, in your positive light is going to be really helpful because it's not just like, hey, this was temp work. And during this time, I helped scale this startup from, brought on like say 30 engineers. And also too, just with now the industry has changed so much, what we've talked about too, since like COVID, being able to lean into these different industries is something that is very common. And then it also is also a very positive thing too, because sometimes it can be harder to break into an industry when you don't have experience. And this is exactly the opportunity to use it as a stepping stone to get into that. So, for example, like aerospace, that might be an industry that not everybody can just get, an opportunity in, right? And so usually they typically look for somebody who has experience in that, whether if it's like in recruiting or something else. They're like, okay, we want a recruiter who has 5+ years or at least a couple of years in aerospace. And this will definitely be the opportunity to be able to do that. I would say take the one that will be most impactful and not the one that is most secure. It depends on what your situation is, but it also will give you a really good insight into a number of things. Like, for example, like the company culture. And if it's like, hey, something that you've been really wanting to pivot for a long time, this will give you that opportunity to use this, use that as a stepping stone, because it's really difficult to say, because I would say with how the market is now, job security, that can be really kind of like up in the air, and having going into like a regular full-time position doesn't always mean that it's going to be like the best opportunity for you, like if you're not growing, if you aren't gaining a whole lot from that. So I think again, seeing it as a stepping stone, for for full-time opportunities, a network multiplier, because then now it expands your professional network even more, rather than just staying at one company. And then another way to of reframing it too is like when you do see multiple different industries, a lot of times employers do see that as like a very valuable strength, because they say, oh, hey, this person has been in a couple of different industries, they've seen different processes, they can come in and learn quickly and just pick things up and be able to like provide a lot of value, versus then somebody who has been with one company for 20 years. You can also be very stagnant in that when you haven't seen a whole lot. So there's definitely different ways to be able to look at that as well too. And I think also just for candidates or people who are in these roles, it also offers a lot of flexibility. So some people choose to do contract work because it gives them that flexibility. It can be usually comes with like higher pay, even though there are like limited benefits when it comes to like health insurance and things like that. But there are other positive benefits that come with it too.
This is a popular topic. There's a lot of questions on this topic. I, as a coach, see this question all the time. Colleen
Kelly,
asked,
can I add one quick thing to that? Because I
oh,
think it's
Peter,
important. Gig
please.
work is also nonprofit work. And I think people forget, like,
Love it.
yes, you're doing gig work, but these little things you can do to volunteer for a nonprofit that keep your skills going, even if it's low pay or free pay or, volunteering. I love seeing on a resume when someone is giving back or doing something, and you never know who could be on that nonprofit board or nonprofit group that could lead to your next company. But that's one of the best ways to keep it going in your downturns, or whether it's contract or gig or just something else. That is a great avenue to get your foot in the door and gain experience too.
Peter, I love that. One of my clients is actually working for Dressers for Success right now, meeting different people next week. I wonder if they need volunteers for Colorado Startup Week. There's so many different opportunities to volunteer. Lots of things going on in the chat. We want to address all of those. Anna, any other thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, I think one of the things I was noticing in the chat too, like bridge jobs or like survival jobs, I think if it's something where it's like, hey, look, I drove for Uber for 3 months just as a means to like keep up with the bills while I like waited for, that next right opportunity. I didn't want to jump at the first opportunity. I wanted to wait for the right one. I don't think that that necessarily needs to go on a resume. I think again, being able to speak towards hey, this is what I did during my time off and to make sure that I was ready for that next role. Again, I don't think we need to put like everything that the IRS and it's like it's not getting cross-checked by your W-2 information of the IRS, right? So it's like you don't need to put all of it in there if it's not relevant. I think that's the only thing I would add there.
Okay. Since I've been doing fractional work for 3 years, there's a question in the chat around how do you actually get into that? And I will tell you that most of my fractional work or consulting work has come from referrals and people in my comfort network zone. You have to have a story of what you were doing, how you're going to be able to give back, understand fractional pricing. I'm happy to talk to anybody about this topic. There's also great books out there, Million Dollar Consultant. There's Fractionals United. There's a conference coming up in the middle of October called FRAC. It is for getting into and surviving and thriving in fractional. It's in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The head of that is John Arms. And I can tell you, I've gotten fractional work from other fractional HR consultants because I am the recruitment piece of that. Think about who your power partners are. Think about who needs strategic alliances, and bankers, commercial bankers, insurance agents are like your circle or people doing business with those that you want to do business with are all good ways to get into fractional. So I hope that that helps. All right. Our next topic is this one's huge. This is the decade of the brain, about mindfulness, about not just surviving, but thriving, especially when you have coasting, rejection, etc. So, Peter, I really would love to hear your thoughts on mind mastery in the job search, and then we can take it from there.
Good question. And this topic, I think, is good because your mind is the worst and best friend of you in these things. And I want to acknowledge that because all of us have been in job searches or were interviewed, and you're going to think the best and the worst, no matter what. And as much as you want to control what you control, you'll question if you did it right or if you didn't hear back on a Friday, did that not happen? And that's normal because especially when you're caring about it, and I want to share that because everyone thinks about that. You want your best foot forward. So knowing I say control what you control. And that's the most important thing you can do in this journey is do your personal things. Say thank you. Do those little things that are left out there. Do those thank you notes. Do that. That really does make sure people know you care about it. But know that there's all sorts of delays that can happen on the recruitment side. People can be out on vacation. People can be out on other trips that just delay feedback. But continuing to be professionally persistent, I think, is very important. And I say that professionally because you can be persistent and annoy and totally lose a job too. But that is very important in that. But the third thing I'll say is be part of a group that knows that you're looking for a job search, because I think that could be the other part to keep you sane and realize you're going through this together. Just like you have groups in recruiting or in life or sports or whatever, you need ones for job search to share good and best practices, and it keeps you be sane. And I would just recommend it, keep it simple, but know you're not alone in any of those thoughts.
Peter, thank you. I love that. That's why we have this community so that you know you're not alone. Most of my group clients have accountability groups, and they have found that specifically on their meeting with people, they're following up. They have and they put out notes to each other, hey, I've got an interview. Can you practice with me? I highly recommend that for anyone. Now, Madison, I know that you mentioned that you love reading about and, eclectic books and learning more about humans. And when we were in our pre-meeting, you had a lot of really nice comments on this as well. So I'll turn it over to you.
Yep, for sure. Thank you for that, Shelly. Appreciate it. Yeah, so I would say being reflective and resilient is really crucial. Somebody also did bring in the chat too that it can feel invalidating when we say this because it is really hard. And I say as somebody who has been laid off a couple of times, I completely understand the market and job searching can be brutal. Like you get a lot of rejections, ghosting, endless applications. It's exhausting. And it's not to say like stay positive and just keep smiling. I think we can really hold two truths at once, right? We can say, hey, this is also really hard, and still be capable of moving through it. And that comes with having a lot of different things too. So like having like a good support system in place, because it also really matters because it can be really easy to like feel like negative self-talk when we're like in isolation, right? And so being able to connect yourself with like-minded individuals or like groups, mentors, that would help a lot. People who remind you of your value when the market does make you forget that. And then being able to also prepare to show up because that will when you don't take care of yourself in that way, knowing when it's important to take a step back is going to be crucial and say, okay, so I've spent all night searching for jobs. Maybe taking this interview in the very next morning might not be best. Or if you know that something's coming up, make sure you get the proper rest for that because the mindset that you have going into that interview is going to be really crucial. So that you can show up fully. I think being able to make time for that rest. And there's like a one quote that I had mentioned too that I really like too, and maybe a lot of you have heard too, where you can either be victim of your circumstances or master of your fate. And again, it's not to like feel like the toxic positivity because I completely understand, but it is very true that at the end of the day, we do own our life. We are responsible for that. So there's a lot of stuff that's out of our control. Like we can't control timing, we can't control budgets, time in maybe like a hidden preferred candidate. But we can prepare, what we can control is like preparing ourselves. So our preparation, our story, our consistency, and how we follow up. So the energy to just thinking about like where you want to put that time in, like what you water grows. So that mindset shift of like, okay, energy is better spent like strengthening what you do own instead of like focusing on what you can't. And so it's very like a cliche, but like a rejection is redirection. And I've always, heard this too, where it's like for everything I thought I lost, I end up with something better every single time. And that's been true for relationships, like friendships and like jobs. So being able to just like reframe of that, it's not a reflection of your worth at all. You can apply for a job that you hit every qualification for, but it is really just such a tough market. It's not the same as it was 5 years ago. So being able to also give yourself that grace, definitely will hit a lot of like roadblocks along the way. And then again, just focusing on when you can, embracing that resilience, continuing to focus on what you have learned, and again knowing when to take those breaks, reaching out to recruiters as you apply for jobs and just making sure that you follow up. And even if it doesn't work out, send a positive note and say, hey, like I really appreciate the time, and if this doesn't, if there's any opportunities on the road, I hope that you could consider me, or maybe even ask for feedback. Like I myself have done that. And there are people who I would then follow up and say, hey, they weren't a fit for this one, but I make a note on their profile, keep in mind for future. And so that attitude that you go into every conversation is really, really crucial because somebody can hit all of the boxes. And if they come in with like a negative attitude, we definitely won't bringing that person on board because then the mindset, the attitude, and like the morale, we don't want somebody who will bring the team down. So would rather hire somebody who maybe don't check all the boxes but has like the positive and right mindset. So just tailoring the applications, each conversation is a net or interview is like a networking conversation, and each interview round is progress, and think of it as it's also giving you practice the more that you interview as well too. So as exhausting as it is, it's also giving you practice. So like celebrate the momentum as well too, and not just like the milestones.
Madison, Peter, thank you. This is a huge topic, and it's one that I see every day, coach on every day, and honestly send amazing energy and vibes out to all of you on every day. This is the hardest part of a job search. And I want to open up the chat. If any of you, like, what are you doing to help with your mindset mastery? Running, cooking, how are you getting movement? Are you using certain hacks? Any AI hacks that help you manage your time? Um, this is really where the community comes in. Put this out there for each other. Be looking at the chat. We've got only 15 minutes. I could stay on this topic, but there's another topic, two topics that I really want to jump into. The first is the hidden job market, because I get questions all the time. How do you actually tap into the hidden job market? And then the last one we're going to talk about is recruiter transparency, because we know that we get a lot of what I hope you've heard from us is good recruiters really do want to help you. There's a lot of crap going on out there. There's baby recruiters. There's people who are not hiring. There's false advertisements. There's texts that are being reached out to you. And look, we can all read the MSN articles out there that this is one of the toughest job markets ever. And I think it's why we have over 60 people here today, right? So your mindset mastery is probably, in my opinion, as a coach of coaching hundreds of people, the most important topic of how you show up, how you sell your voice, what your story looks like, and how you come into every single day. So please share what you've done in that. All right, I'm going to head over to the hidden job market. And Anna, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one.
Yeah. So what I would say here is that as recruiters, a lot of times we are in meetings when it comes to either succession planning or we're in these meetings about, company development and growth. And so sometimes we are aware of opportunities, but it's not necessarily appropriate to post those opportunities. So I think if there is a company out there that you really admire, I think adding strategic connections on LinkedIn is always a really good idea. And then that way, for example, let's say, hey, I heard that this restaurant is opening a new location in DC. I would love to be considered when you all break ground on that project. Then that way, as a recruiter, it's like, oh, I know someone in DC. Let me go through my notes really quick. So that's something that definitely being proactive is definitely a great way to do that, because again, like sometimes the job board isn't necessarily reflective of that. I also think adding strategic connections on LinkedIn for hiring managers that you might aspire to work under is always a great option, just to say, hey, I really admire your work. I'm very interested in growing in your particular field. I would love to be a connection. I would love to learn from you. Like, I think something like that could really go a long way too. Because recruiters, I think, get a lot of messages along those veins, but I think for the hiring managers, I think that would be a really nice touch. So that's what comes to mind when I think about some of the hidden job market. But again, I think we've said this so often that like leveraging your networks, but also being brave to reach out to certain connections, or hey, do you know someone? Asking for help is just such a valuable exercise. And so again, it really opens up opportunities that might not necessarily be listed on sites or may not necessarily be public knowledge currently.
Thank you. Peter.
I think we've hit it pretty well. And the only thing that I think was really important is when they point out like how you follow up on a job interview. Even though you didn't get it, you never know what could open the next day. Or I could be offering Anna the job and she turns it down and you were my follow-up candidate. And I've had that more often than you know. And if I know that person followed up professionally, It's like, wow, congratulations, Shelly, you got the job. Or, if Shelly was sort of a BI or just sort of just nasty at the end, it's like, oh, wow, that stinks. She sort of blew it. And it happens more than you know. Or the company changes and suddenly I hire in it. We need a second person.
Mm-hmm.
And just because you didn't get that first one, know that there is always an opportunity, and how you professionally leave that interview is so important because there's always an opportunity. No just means not yet, lots of times. And I've seen people just blow it on that because the market's changing. People grow, people resign, people get promoted, people retire all the time. So you just have to be aware of that. And I think that's a great opportunity because there's also another department that's like, oh, Andy, you didn't get this job, but you'd be perfect over in this other area. That I think is those hidden job market, that there's a lot of opportunity out there that is just missing that you don't know about. But resumes have friends, as I always say. You never know who could be your friend to take your resume someplace else.
Thank you, Peter. I can't even tell you how important the follow-up, the professionalism, and the recognition with each person that you interview with. Let me give you an example. The market's been hard for everyone. As a solopreneur, I decided to put my hat in the ring for a full-time role. I haven't done that in 10 years. I got second runner-up for that role. I sent notes to the receptionist. I followed up with a recruiter exactly how they told me to. And I did all of these things. I beat out thousands of people because of how you show up. And I'm giving that example because I hadn't applied in 10 years, right? It's how you show up, how you listen. The most important mind mastery is how you become psychologically relevant to each person that you're interviewing with. Um, I've had lots of people get jobs that were silver candidates, etc. Okay, I can't believe how fast the time is going by. I am going to skip negotiating and evaluating offers, and I want to go and jump into recruiter transparency because there are more articles. There's more, as we've seen in the chat. We understand that our systems aren't perfect. We are humans. We make mistakes. So, however, I hope that you have heard from us that we really do want to hire you. We are your advocates. And so let's just open it up and be transparent behind the recruitment curtain. Madison, I'm going to start with you on this one.
Yeah, most definitely. So I would say, for application reality check, for one opening, we could have hundreds of applications within seconds. Full transparency, recruiters may only spend about like 6 to 10 seconds scanning each resume in the first pass if we know what we're looking for. So if it's like a very experienced like recruiter, somebody who's been in the industry for a long time, they'll glance, they'll look, and go from there. So we don't, I think it depends, but like it's we don't auto reject as much as people fear. That's one thing too, but we do organize and prioritize. So we often look at like keywords, job titles, core skills, and things like that. All of those things before like diving into the resumes. So if your resume doesn't clearly show the skills for the job, like on the, like the top third of the page, it might be hard for a recruiter to, see how great you really are and how much you align with that. But we have like a process that we go through to align with like the hiring managers. So just from the recruiter side, when we have like a job opening, we will do like a intake with the hiring manager to understand what they're looking for. Hey, what are the deal breakers? Things like that. So that's where the lens of where everything is filtered through. And then we screen the resumes for a match. And sometimes, calling out like wild cards for discussion with the hiring manager as well too. And then we will do the phone screen where if you pass a paper review, then the recruiter will give you a call to connect deeper, maybe say, hey, this person didn't have this on their resume. They might be able to give you an opportunity to elaborate on that. But that doesn't happen so much. I would say that's why having your resume be really relevant to the job that you're applying to, and customizing it and tailoring it to the job is very crucial because again, what Anna mentioned this earlier too, it's going to be your invitation to the party. So sometimes I'll go back and say, okay, let me just call this person. They have some things that I feel like might be relevant. But that's only if we've already gone through a number of people, or maybe, and we're starting the search now, or if it's like a very niche position. But it doesn't happen so often too, especially just with this market being over flooded. So that will be really crucial. And then again, we then present your profile along with the notes to the hiring manager, and that's where then often where the real decision starts. So after you apply, it can definitely feel like a black hole. Even if a recruiter does love you, like hiring managers also juggle priorities. So the delays don't always reflect on you. Sometimes the roles pause, change, or there's maybe an internal candidate already in play. But silence doesn't always mean no. And sometimes it means that we are stuck, waiting internally. But again, being able to just be good with the follow up, like the communication, know that we are your champion, and we also do want to balance what the company needs as well too. So it can be a tough spot when you're in that middle ground. But like a check-in is completely fine as well too. And we definitely do remember like strong impressions. So even if you're not the right one for one role, again, what I mentioned earlier will often flag you for future openings.
Thank you, Madison. Anna.
Yeah, so just like Madison said, standing out amongst some of the resumes can definitely be a challenge. So definitely having your resume reflective of that particular job, I think is important. Don't be afraid to have multiple versions of your resume, right? Like maybe it's a version that specifically highlights your SEO experience. Maybe it's because you're specifically going for a marketing role that like heavily highlights that, right? So I think that's something that's important to keep in mind, right? So again, if a job description is really highlighting X, Y, and Z experience, don't be afraid to have a version of your resume that is really prioritizing the X, Y, and Z experience that you are seeing on the job description. That way you're going to stand out. And then one thing I think what I would want candidates to know as far as, the transparency that we see as recruiters. Yes, there are like some AI tools, but for the most part, I mean, I've been doing this for 10 years. I've never had AI as a resume screener. I've gone through every single application that I have as a human. Like, yes, maybe some filters for like work authorization, things like that are like very clear. But when it comes to like mining out skills and things like that, I don't trust AI to do that for me. Most of the time, like there is a human going through every single resume that comes through. So one of the things like I wish folks knew is that like please don't respond to the like generic, because yes, there are some tools where it'll say like, hey, we're sorry to say that, you weren't selected past this first round. But if you respond to that email, it actually most of the time does go back to the recruiter. So I know I've had candidates where they're like, oh, like F you, F this. I didn't want to work here anyway. And it goes to me and I'm like, hi, I'm like, why did you feel the need to respond this way? And they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. I thought this was an automated message. I thought this was just robots. I was just frustrated. It's like, I wish you hadn't done that, right? Because that puts you in a really poor light. Yes, like, yes, there is a lot of technology. Yes, there are ways to like optimize, but again, so much of the recruitment process is still very much, managed by the humans. So, showing up with grace, I think is really important. And then, like Madison said, there's appropriate times to be able to reach out and ask for feedback. So just being mindful about like when those opportunities might be to be able to, leverage those resources.
Awesome. Peter, any transparency protocol that you'd like
Transparency
to
is really,
share?
Anna hit on one thing that I think is important with your resume, having different versions, but also making sure you're always reorging your bullet points on your resume of your jobs. Not your whole job changing, but if I was an HR manager at Comcast and you had 5 bullet points underneath, it is crucial that, those 5 bullet points, I'm going to read first one you did most, second one you did second most, third one you did next, next, next. Well, the problem is maybe your fifth one down is most important to that job, or maybe you did it most, and it will literally rule you out of that job because I'll be like, oh, Shelly didn't do that much. It's fifth on her list. Always reorganize those bullet points because that will help you stand out, and you're not changing your job. You're not faking anything or doing anything wrong, but the human eye is meant to look at, oh, Shelly did this first, second, third. I want to see if that job has you first, second, third, just change it. That will help you tremendously, both with whether it's an AI bot looking at you, but really a human person is really going to judge you on that. So always change that. It's worth your time.
Awesome.
I'll say one really, really quick thing too. Recruiters also can very much see what you title your resume and cover letter. So if you're titling it HR manager resume Comcast version 1, we see that. So yes, like I know I've just been preaching about having like the different versions, but if you're also highlighting that it's like that I'm applying to all these different places and I'm naming them by like the separate applications, like just be a little bit thoughtful. Like I think like first name, last name, resume, 2025. Like I think that's perfect. I think that I just again just be mindful of like what your naming conventions are.
So you heard it here. Lots of insight for you. I can't believe this hour and a half, hour and 15 minutes has gone so quickly. Peter, Madison, Anna, thank you so much for your time, for your transparency, and for your authenticity today. We will be sending out this recording within the next 48 hours. If you have found Best You Career Connections community to be useful for you, help us get the word out. We have had people from all over the world. We've helped over 6,000 people in the past 3.5 years, which is just unbelievable to me. If you have ideas on speakers or topics that you'd like to hear from, let us know. We want to hear from you as our audience. But my biggest hope today is that you've heard some nuggets, some takeaways that you will leverage and use immediately in your professional development or your job search. My biggest heartfelt hope is that you feel better than when you came and that you have a community here, that you've met someone through chat, that you've seen someone that's similar, that you've heard ideas today, like accountability groups, like asking for help. It is okay to ask for help. You do not have to have the superhero imposter syndrome of I have to do this on my own. If I can personally help you, I would love to talk to you one-on-one. I would love to see how we can map your, like, do a roadmap for you in 30 minutes to get you going and faster and fast tracking some things. From my heart, thank you so much, everyone. Great to see all of you. We will be back in early October with more. If you're in Colorado, Colorado Startup Week is next week. We'd love to see you. And thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Shelly.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank